The emergency beacon cut through the void of space like a scream in the night. It pulsed with the universal distress code, broadcasting on frequencies that every civilized species in the galaxy recognized. The signal originated from the Kepler 442 system, home to the peaceful Zephyrians, a species known throughout the galaxy for their art, philosophy, and complete pacifism. Captain Sarah Chen sat in the command chair of the UES Vengeance, one of humanity's newest deep space vessels. The ship was massive by human standards, but small compared to the gigantic vessels of other galactic civilizations. What it lacked in size, it made up for in speed, armor, and enough firepower to level a small moon. "Captain, we're receiving that distress signal again," reported Lieutenant Kim from the communications station. "It's getting weaker. Whatever's happening out there, it's been going on for days." Sarah frowned, studying the holographic display showing their current position. They were still 3 days out from Kepler 442, even at maximum burn. The Vengeance was on a routine patrol mission along the outer rim, far from the core worlds where most galactic species lived. Humanity had only been part of the Galactic Council for 50 years, and they were still considered newcomers, and dangerous ones at that. "Any other ships responding to the distress call?" Sarah asked. "Negative, Captain. We've been monitoring all frequencies. No one else is even acknowledging the signal." That wasn't surprising. The Kepler 442 system was in what the other species called the Dead Zone, a region of space considered too dangerous for most civilized races to travel. It was filled with asteroid fields, unstable stars, and, worst of all, it bordered the territory of the Vrak Consortium. The Vrak were the galaxy's nightmare. A species of insectoid predators that had consumed entire star systems, they were the reason most races avoided this part of the galaxy. They took slaves, stripped planets bare of resources, and left nothing but dead worlds in their wake. The Galactic Council had tried diplomacy with them once. The Vrak had responded by enslaving the entire diplomatic mission. "Sir," called out Ensign Rodriguez from the sensor station, "I'm picking up massive energy signatures from the Kepler 442 system. Multiple ships, definitely Vrak design. It looks like they're bombarding the planet." Sarah felt her jaw clench. She had read the files on the Zephyrians during their journey. They were one of the most peaceful species in the galaxy. Their entire civilization was built around harmony, art, and the pursuit of knowledge. They had no military, no weapons, no way to defend themselves against an invasion. "Captain," Lieutenant Kim spoke up again, "we're receiving a direct communication from Zephyria Prime." It's bad, sir." "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing a Zephyrian in what appeared to be a government building. The alien was tall and slender, with pale blue skin and large, dark eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. But now those eyes were filled with terror. Behind the alien, Sarah could see smoke and fire through broken windows. "This is Chancellor Viridian of the Zephyrian Republic," the alien spoke in perfect standard galactic. "Our world is under attack by the Vrak Consortium. They have already taken our outer colonies. Billions of my people are dead or enslaved. We sent distress signals to the Galactic Council 3 days ago, but no one has responded. We know that our system is in the dead zone, but please, if anyone can hear this, we need help. We have no weapons, no military. We are a peaceful people. The Vrak are landing troops on our cities. They are taking our children to use as slaves in their mining operations. Please, if there is anyone out there who can help us, we are begging you. We don't want to fight, but we cannot let them take our children. This may be our final transmission. If you are receiving this and you cannot help us, please, remember us. Remember that we existed. Remember that we tried to bring beauty into this universe." The transmission cut to static. The bridge of the Vengeance fell silent. Sarah stared at the empty screen, feeling a familiar fire building in her chest. It was the same feeling she had experienced during the border wars, when pirates had attacked human colonies. It was the feeling that had made her join the military in the first place. "Captain," Chief Engineer Martinez's voice came over the intercom, "I've been monitoring the situation. If we push the engines past Redline, we can reach Kepler 442 in 18 hours instead of 3 days. That could damage the ship permanently, Lieutenant Kim warned. Sir, Ensign Rodriguez added, our orders are to complete our patrol route and report back to command. We're not authorized to engage in combat operations without approval from Admiral Morrison. Sarah stood up from her command chair and walked to the main viewing screen. Outside, the stars streamed past as the ship traveled at faster than light speeds. She thought about the Zephyrian children being loaded onto Vrak slave ships. She thought about a peaceful civilization being wiped out while the rest of the galaxy turned a blind eye. Mr. Martinez, she said finally, push those engines to whatever they'll take. Plot a course for Kepler 442, maximum speed. Captain, Lieutenant Kim protested, if we do this, we'll be acting without authorization. Command could court-martial you. Sarah turned to face her crew. These were good people, all of them. They had signed up to protect humanity and its interests. What she was asking them to do could end all their careers. Listen to me, she said, when I was a kid, I used to wonder how people in the old days could just stand by and let terrible things happen. How they could know about genocide, slavery, and suffering, and just do nothing. I swore I would never be one of those people. She paused, looking each crew member in the eye. The Zephyrians are dying. Their children are being enslaved. And we're the only ones in position to help. I'm not going to let that happen on my watch. She moved to the central console. Now, I'm not ordering anyone to follow me. What we're about to do is technically mutiny. If any of you want to file objections and have them noted in the ship's log, now's the time. The bridge was quiet for a long moment. Then, Chief Martinez's voice came over the intercom again. Engines are redlining, Captain. We'll be at Kepler 442 in 17 hours and 30 minutes. Weapons systems are charging, reported Tactical Officer Brooks. All missile tubes loaded, railguns powered up. Course plotted and laid in, announced Navigator Patel. Sarah smiled grimly. She had the best crew in the fleet. Mr. Kim, send a message to command. Tell them we received a distress call and are responding under Article 15 of the Galactic Accord's humanitarian intervention in cases of genocide. That's a pretty loose interpretation of Article 15, sir. Then, we better make sure we're right. Sarah settled back into her command chair. All stations, battle readiness. We're going to war. As the Vengeance streaked through space toward the embattled Zephyrian system, Sarah pulled up everything the ship's computer had on Vrak military tactics. What she saw made her stomach turn. The Vrak consortium operated like a plague of locusts. They would arrive at a system with overwhelming force, quickly destroy any orbital defenses, and then begin systematic harvesting of the planet. They took everything of value, resources, technology, and people. The people were the worst part. The Vrak used other species as slave labor in their massive mining operations and factory worlds. They preferred young, healthy specimens who could work for decades under brutal conditions. Children were especially prized because they could be broken in and trained to be perfectly obedient workers. The intelligence reports painted a clear picture of what was happening to the Zephyrians. The peaceful aliens were being sorted into groups. The young and healthy would be shipped to Vrak slave worlds. The elderly and weak would be killed immediately. The planet's resources would be stripped bare, leaving behind a dead rock. Captain, Ensign Rodriguez called out, long-range sensors are picking up the Vrak fleet. Preliminary count shows 12 heavy cruisers, 6 dreadnoughts, and at least 30 smaller vessels. They've completely surrounded the planet. Sarah did the math in her head. The Vengeance was a powerful ship, but they were facing a fleet that outgunned them 50-1. In a straight fight, they wouldn't last 5 minutes. Any sign of planetary defenses? She asked. Negative. The Zephyrians have no military spacecraft. Their orbital stations appear to have been destroyed in the initial attack. Sarah studied the tactical display. The Vrak ships were positioned in a perfect blockade formation around the planet. Nothing could get in or out without fighting through their entire fleet. It was a textbook invasion strategy, overwhelming force applied with brutal efficiency. But Sarah had learned something during her years fighting pirates and raiders in the border wars. Sometimes, the side with fewer ships could win if they were willing to take risks that their enemy wouldn't expect. Lieutenant Kim opened a channel to the Vrak fleet. "Sir? You heard me. I want to talk to whoever's in charge of this operation." Kim worked his console for a moment. "Channel open, Captain." Sarah stood up, straightening her uniform. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Vengeance. I'm ordering you to withdraw from this system immediately and release any prisoners you've taken." The response came quickly, transmitted on the same frequency. The voice was harsh and guttural, speaking accented Standard Galactic. "Human ship, this is War Commander Thax of the Vrak Consortium. You are in violation of Consortium space. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." "This isn't Consortium space," Sarah replied coolly. "This is an independent system under the protection of the Galactic Accords. You're committing genocide, War Commander. That's a crime under galactic law." The alien's laughter sounded like grinding metal. "Galactic law? Human, your species has been part of the Council for barely 50 years. You know nothing of how this galaxy truly works. The strong take what they want. The weak serve or die. This is the natural order." "Maybe in your corner of the galaxy," Sarah said. "But, where I come from, we have a different philosophy. We believe that strength should be used to protect the weak, not prey on them." "Foolish human. You command one ship. I command a fleet of 50. If you do not withdraw in the next 10 minutes, I will add your wreckage to the debris field around this worthless planet." The transmission cut off. Sarah looked around the bridge at her crew. They all knew the odds they were facing. But she could see determination in their eyes, not fear. "Captain," Lieutenant Kim said quietly, "there might be another way. I've been studying the Vrak fleet formation. They're concentrating most of their firepower on the planet's major population centers. If we could create a distraction, draw their attention away from the surface." "The Zephyrians might be able to evacuate some of their people," finished Ensign Rodriguez, catching on to the plan. Sarah nodded. It wasn't a perfect plan, but it was something. How long would we need to hold their attention? Chief Martinez's voice came over the intercom. "If the Zephyrians have any kind of evacuation ships, they could get maybe 10% of their population off-world in 6 hours. But, Captain, there's no way we can survive against that fleet for 6 hours." Sarah walked to the tactical display, studying the positioning of the Vrak ships. An idea was forming in her mind, a crazy, desperate idea that just might work. "We're not going to fight their entire fleet," she said slowly. "We're going to make them think we're crazy enough to try." She turned to address her crew. "Here's what we're going to do. We're going to charge straight into the heart of their formation, hit their flagship as hard as we can, and then run like hell. The key is to make them chase us. If we can draw their ships away from the planet, the Zephyrians might have a chance." "Sir," Tactical Officer Brooks spoke up, "even if we survive the first pass, they'll eventually corner us. Their ships are faster than ours in real space." Sarah smiled grimly. "Then, we better make sure they don't corner us. Mr. Patel, how well do you know the asteroid field in this system?" Navigator Patel brought up a detailed map of the Kepler 442 system. "It's dense, Captain. Very dense. Most ships wouldn't dare enter it at high speed." "Most ships," Sarah repeated. "But, the Vengeance isn't most ships. We're smaller and more maneuverable than anything in their fleet. If we can lure them into the asteroid field, they'll either have to slow down and risk losing us, or maintain speed and risk collision," finished Lieutenant Kim. "It's brilliant, sir. Crazy, but brilliant." The ship shuddered slightly as the engines strained against their maximum output. They were still hours away from the Zephyrian system, but Sarah could feel the anticipation building among the crew. They all knew they were about to attempt something that would either save millions of lives or get them all killed. All right, people, Sarah announced. We've got 16 hours to finalize our plan and prepare for battle. I want every system checked and double-checked. Load every missile tube, charge every capacitor, and make sure our engines can take the punishment we're about to give them. She paused, looking around at the faces of her crew. And I want everyone to understand something. What we're doing today isn't about following orders or serving our government. It's about being human. It's about standing up for those who can't stand up for themselves. It's about proving that sometimes one ship and one crew can make a difference in this universe. As the Vengeance raced through the void toward the Kepler 442 system, its crew worked with desperate efficiency to prepare for the battle of their lives. Behind them, the stars wheeled in their eternal dance, indifferent to the drama about to unfold. Ahead of them, an entire civilization waited for salvation that might never come. But Captain Sarah Chen had made her choice. She had heard the desperate call of the Zephyrians, and she was bringing the wrath of humanity to answer it. Whatever happened next, the galaxy would learn that when peaceful people called for help, the Deathworlders of Earth would not turn away. The Vengeance dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler 442 system like a predator emerging from the darkness. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge, watching as the tactical displays lit up with enemy contacts. The Vrak fleet was even larger than their initial estimates had suggested. 53 ships confirmed, reported Ensign Rodriguez. 6 dreadnoughts, 14 heavy cruisers, 23 destroyers, and 10 support vessels. They're maintaining orbital bombardment positions around Zephyria Prime. Through the main viewer, Sarah could see the blue-green world of the Zephyrians. Even from this distance, she could make out the angry red glow of fires burning on the planet's surface. Occasional flashes marked where Vrak plasma cannons were reducing cities to slag. Any sign of evacuation efforts, she asked. Lieutenant Kim worked his console frantically. I'm picking up scattered civilian transmissions from the surface. It sounds like they're trying to move people to the southern continent, away from the main bombardment zones. But, Captain, there are so many of them. 4 billion Zephyrians on that planet. Sarah felt the weight of those numbers settle on her shoulders. 4 billion lives depending on what happened in the next few hours. She pushed the thought aside and focused on the tactical situation. What's the status of the Vrak flagship? She asked Tactical Officer Brooks. The dreadnought Death's Harvest is positioned directly above the largest population center. It's a Kraken-class vessel, nearly 3 kilometers long. From the energy readings, it's packing enough firepower to crack a planet. Sarah studied the formation. War Commander Thax had positioned his flagship at the center of his fleet, protected by layers of smaller ships. It was a standard Vrak defensive formation, designed to protect the most valuable vessel while maximizing offensive capabilities. Mr. Patel, what's the most direct route to the flagship? Navigator Patel brought up a 3-dimensional tactical display. Straight through the middle of their formation, Captain. We'd have to run a gauntlet of at least 20 ships to reach effective weapons range. And our chances of survival? Brooks ran quick calculations. Against those odds? Less than 5%, sir. Sarah nodded. About what she had expected. And if we approach from an unexpected angle? The asteroid belt, Patel said immediately. If we come in from the night side of the planet, using the asteroid field for cover, we could get within striking distance before they detect us. But we'd still have to face the entire fleet once we attack, Brooks added. One problem at a time, Sarah said. Chief Martinez, what's our engine status? The chief engineer's voice crackled over the intercom. Holding steady at 110% normal output. We can maintain this for maybe 6 hours before I can't guarantee the containment field stability. 6 hours, Sarah mused. It'll have to be enough. Mr. Kim, any response to our earlier transmission to the Zephyrians? Coming in now, Captain. Kim's voice was tight with emotion as he read the message. Chancellor Viridian reports that evacuation efforts are underway, but they only have a few dozen transport ships. At current rate, they can evacuate maybe 400,000 people before. He swallowed hard. before the Vrak finished their occupation. Less than 1% of the population. Sarah felt sick, but she forced herself to stay focused. Tell them to concentrate their evacuation efforts on the southern continent. We're going to try to draw the Vrak fleet away from the planet, but they need to be ready to move fast when we do. She turned to address her entire crew over the ship's intercom. All hands, this is the captain. In approximately 30 minutes, we're going to engage a hostile force that outnumbers us 50-1. Our mission is to create enough chaos to allow Zephyrian civilians to escape. This is not a glorious charge or a heroic last stand. This is a calculated risk designed to save as many lives as possible. She paused, choosing her words carefully. I won't lie to you. Our chances aren't good. But, sometimes, doing what's right isn't about the odds. It's about standing up when no one else will. It's about proving that one ship, crewed by determined people, can make a difference in this universe. The response was immediate. Throughout the ship, crew members began final preparations with grim determination. In engineering, Chief Martinez and his team pushed the ship's systems to their absolute limits. In the weapons bay, ordnance specialists loaded every missile tube and charged every plasma cannon. On the bridge, the senior staff worked with practiced efficiency to prepare for the battle of their lives. Captain, Navigation Officer Patel called out, I'm reading massive energy signatures from the Vrak fleet. It looks like they're preparing to glass the northern continent. Sarah's blood ran cold. Glassing was the term for orbital bombardment so intense that it literally melted the planet's surface into glass. It was genocide on a planetary scale. How long before they commence bombardment? Based on their charging patterns, maybe 20 minutes. Sarah made her decision. Change of plans. We can't wait for the perfect approach. Mr. Patel, plot a direct course to the enemy flagship. Maximum burn. Sir, that means going straight through their formation, Brooks warned. I know. Sarah settled into her command chair and activated the shipwide intercom again. All hands, brace for combat. We're going in. The Vengeance accelerated toward the Vrak fleet like an arrow shot from a bow. Sarah watched the tactical display as enemy ships began to react to their approach. Red icons shifted position as Vrak commanders realized that the small human ship was actually attacking. Incoming transmission from the Vrak flagship, Kim reported. Let me guess. War Commander Thax wants to gloat. The harsh voice of the Vrak commander filled the bridge. Foolish human. You dare attack the might of the consortium with a single ship? You will die slowly for your arrogance. Your crew will live just long enough to watch as we finish destroying this pathetic world. Sarah activated the reply channel. War Commander Thax, this is Captain Chen. I've got a message for you from the people of Earth. She paused for effect. Go to hell. She cut the transmission and turned to her tactical officer. Mr. Brooks, arm all weapons. Target their flagship's main reactor. Aye, Captain. All weapons armed and ready. The first Vrak ships opened fire when the Vengeance was still 2 million kilometers away. Plasma bolts and missile salvos streaked across the void, creating a deadly light show against the starfield. But Patel's navigation was flawless. The human ship twisted and turned through the barrage like a dancer, its smaller size and superior maneuverability allowing it to slip between attacks that would have annihilated a larger vessel. First wave of enemy fire missed completely, Brooks reported with grim satisfaction. Their targeting systems are calibrated for larger ships. Don't get cocky, Sarah warned. They'll adjust. How long until we reach effective range? 3 minutes, Captain. Those 3 minutes felt like hours. The Vengeance continued its desperate charge through increasingly heavy fire. Plasma bolts seared past the hull, close enough that Sarah could feel the heat through the ship's metal skin. A missile salvo nearly caught them, the nuclear explosions close enough to rattle the ship's frame. Minor damage to the port armor plating, Chief Martinez reported. But we're holding together. Sarah watched the tactical display as they penetrated deeper into the enemy formation. Wrack ships were converging on their position from all sides, trying to box them in. It was exactly what she had hoped for. "Captain, we're in range of the flagship," Brooks announced. "Fire everything." The Vengeance unleashed its full arsenal in a single, devastating salvo. Nuclear missiles streaked toward the massive wrack dreadnought while plasma cannons and railguns hammered its shields. The human ship's weapons were primitive compared to some galactic civilizations, but they were designed with one purpose in mind: to punch through heavy armor and cause maximum damage. The wrack flagship's shields flared and collapsed under the concentrated fire. Nuclear warheads detonated against its hull, tearing massive holes in the armor plating. Railgun rounds punched through the ship's superstructure like bullets through paper. Direct hit on their main reactor. Brooks shouted. "Their power grid is fluctuating." The massive wrack ship listed to one side, secondary explosions rippling along its hull. But it wasn't destroyed. The dreadnought was simply too large to be killed by a single ship, even with a perfect attack run. "Their weapons are powering down," Rodriguez reported. "But they're launching fighters." Sarah saw the cloud of small craft emerging from the damaged flagship. Wrack fighters were fast and heavily armed, perfect for hunting down a single ship. "Mr. Patel, get us out of here. Head for the asteroid field, maximum burn." The Vengeance turned away from the enemy fleet and accelerated toward the dense asteroid field that ringed the inner system. Behind them, dozens of wrack ships were in pursuit, their commanders furious that a single human vessel had dared to attack their flagship. "It's working," Kim said excitedly. "Half their fleet is breaking off from the planet to chase us." Sarah felt a moment of fierce satisfaction. The Zephyrians would have a chance now. But their own situation was growing more desperate by the minute. "Incoming fighters," Brooks warned. 30 small craft, closing fast. Point defense systems online? All defensive guns operational, but, Captain, there are too many of them." The first wave of wrack fighters screamed past the Vengeance, their energy weapons carving glowing lines across the ship's armor. The human vessel's point defense guns chattered in response, filling the space around them with streams of high-velocity projectiles. Several enemy fighters exploded, but more kept coming. "Damage report," Sarah called out as the ship shook under enemy fire. "Forward armor is holding, but they're concentrating fire on our engines," Martinez reported. "If they disable our drive, we're dead." Sarah made another split-second decision. "Mr. Brooks, launch a spread of proximity mines behind us. Maybe we can thin out their numbers." Mines away. The weapons detonated like deadly flowers blooming in space. 3 wrack fighters vanished in nuclear fire, but the rest adapted quickly, spreading out to avoid the mines. Entering the asteroid field, Patel announced. "Recommend reducing speed." "Negative. Maintain maximum burn." "Captain, at this velocity, even a small asteroid could destroy us." "Then, don't hit any asteroids." The Vengeance plunged into the asteroid field at a speed that would have terrified any sane pilot. Chunks of rock the size of buildings flashed past the ship's hull, some missing by mere meters. Patel's hands flew over his controls, constantly adjusting their course to avoid collisions. Behind them, the pursuing wrack ships were forced to slow down. The larger vessels couldn't match the human ship's maneuverability among the densely packed asteroids. But the fighters were still coming, weaving between the floating rocks with deadly precision. "They're gaining on us," Brooks warned. Sarah studied the tactical display. The asteroid field was vast, but it wouldn't hide them forever. And their engines were already showing signs of strain from the extended high-speed run. "Captain," Chief Martinez's voice was tight with concern, "I'm reading microfractures in the primary drive couplings. If we don't reduce power soon, how long can you hold it together?" "Maybe 30 minutes at current output." Sarah's mind raced. 30 minutes wasn't enough time to escape the system, but it might be enough for something else. "Mr. Kim, open a channel to the Zephyrian government. Tell them they have 30 minutes to evacuate as many people as possible. After that." She didn't finish the sentence. As the Vengeance continued its desperate flight through the asteroid field, Sarah began formulating a new plan. It was even crazier than their attack on the flagship, but it might be their only chance to buy the Zephyrians more time. "Mr. Brooks, what's the largest asteroid in this field?" Brooks consulted his sensors. "There's a monster about 50 kilometers ahead. Nearly 10 kilometers in diameter, composed primarily of iron and nickel." "Perfect. Mr. Patel, plot an intercept course with that asteroid." "Sir?" "You heard me. I want to land this ship on that rock." The bridge crew exchanged worried glances, but they followed orders. The Vengeance adjusted course toward the massive asteroid, using its bulk to hide from the pursuing wrack ships. "Captain, what are you planning?" Lieutenant Kim asked. Sarah smiled grimly. "If we can't outrun them, and we can't outgun them, then we're going to outthink them." She activated the ship's intercom. "All hands, prepare for emergency landing procedures. We're setting down on the surface of an asteroid, and it's going to be rough." The Vengeance settled onto the surface of the massive asteroid with bone-jarring force. The ship's landing gear, designed for planetary surfaces, struggled to find purchase on the irregular rocky surface. But Chief Martinez and his engineering team had performed miracles with the ship's systems, and somehow they managed to achieve a stable landing. "Power down all non-essential systems," Sarah ordered. "Make them think we're disabled." The ship went dark except for essential life support and minimal sensors. On the surface of the asteroid, the Vengeance looked like just another piece of space debris among the countless rocks drifting through the field. The Vrak fighters swept past them, searching frantically for their quarry. Some came close enough that Sarah could see their alien pilots through the cockpit windows, but the human ship's stealth systems and the asteroid's natural camouflage kept them hidden. "They're moving away," Rodriguez whispered, as if speaking too loudly might give away their position. Sarah waited until the enemy fighters had disappeared into the depths of the asteroid field before activating the ship's communication system. "Mr. Kim, status report on the evacuation efforts." The Zephyrians report that they've managed to evacuate nearly 800,000 people so far. The Vrak fleet is still searching for us, which has reduced their bombardment of the planet. "Good. But it's not enough." Sarah stood up and began pacing the bridge. "We need to buy them more time. A lot more time." "Captain," Brooks said slowly, "I might have an idea. This asteroid we're sitting on, it's in a decaying orbit around the system's star. With the right push, we could send it on a collision course with the Vrak fleet." Sarah stopped pacing and stared at her tactical officer. "You want to turn this asteroid into a kinetic weapon?" "It's possible. If we use our engines at full power and hit the rock at just the right angle, we could alter its trajectory enough to threaten their formation. They'd have to move their ships or risk collision." The idea was insane. It was also brilliant. "How long would we have to prepare?" Sarah asked. "The calculations are complex, but maybe 6 hours to achieve the right orbital mechanics." Sarah felt her heart sink. They didn't have 6 hours. The ship's engines were already damaged, and the Vrak would eventually find them. But then, another idea began to form in her mind. An idea so crazy that it just might work. "What if we don't wait 6 hours?" she said slowly. "What if we detonate our nuclear arsenal inside this asteroid and create an artificial meteor shower?" The bridge fell silent as the crew processed what their captain was suggesting. "Captain," Chief Martinez said carefully, "if we detonate our entire nuclear arsenal at once, the explosion would turn this 10-kilometer asteroid into thousands of smaller projectiles moving at orbital velocity," Sarah finished. "Creating a shotgun blast aimed directly at the Vrak fleet. It would also destroy our ship," Kim pointed out. "Not necessarily." Sarah moved to the tactical display. "If we time it right, we could use the explosion to boost our own velocity and escape the system. It would be like surfing the shockwave." Brooks ran quick calculations on his console. "The math actually works. It would be like riding a nuclear explosion, but it's theoretically possible." Sarah looked around at her crew. These people had already risked everything to help complete strangers. Now she was asking them to risk their lives on an insane plan that had never been attempted before. "I'm not ordering anyone to do this," she said quietly. "This is volunteer only. Anyone who wants to can take an escape pod and try to reach the Zephyrian evacuation ships." The response was immediate and unanimous. "I'm with you, Captain," Kim said. "Same here," added Brooks. One by one, every member of the bridge crew voiced their support. Over the intercom, similar responses came from throughout the ship. Chief Martinez summed up their feelings perfectly. "Captain, we came here to save lives. If this crazy plan of yours can save a few million more, then let's do it." Sarah felt a surge of pride in her crew. These were the best people she had ever served with. "All right, people. Let's turn this asteroid into the biggest firecracker in galactic history." As the crew of the Vengeance began preparing for their desperate gambit, the ship's sensors detected movement in the asteroid field. The Vrak were closing in, their search pattern tightening around the massive rock where the human ship lay hidden. Time was running out. Soon, they would either save the Zephyrians or die trying. But Captain Saracen had made her choice, and she was ready to face whatever came next. The countdown timer on the Vengeance's main display read 37 minutes and falling. Captain Saracen watched the numbers decrease while her crew made final preparations for what might be their last act as a starship crew. Around them, the massive asteroid provided temporary shelter from the Vrak search parties, but that protection wouldn't last much longer. "Engineering report, Mr. Martinez," Sarah called out. The chief engineer's voice crackled over the intercom, tinged with exhaustion and determination. "All nuclear warheads have been removed from their housings and positioned throughout the asteroid's core structure. We've basically turned this rock into the galaxy's largest improvised explosive device. When those charges detonate simultaneously, the explosion will fragment the asteroid into thousands of high-velocity projectiles." "And our escape window?" "Exactly 4.7 seconds after detonation. That's how long we'll have to ride the shockwave before it either accelerates us to escape velocity or tears us apart." Sarah nodded grimly. 4.7 seconds to determine whether they lived or died. She had faced long odds before, but never anything quite this insane. "Mr. Brooks, what's the status of our targeting solution?" Tactical Officer Brooks looked up from his console, sweat beading on his forehead despite the bridge's cool temperature. "The trajectory calculations are locked in. When the asteroid fragments, approximately 60% of the debris will impact the Vrak fleet formation. The largest pieces should be moving at nearly 15,000 kilometers per second." Lieutenant Kim turned in his chair. "Captain, I'm receiving updates from the Zephyrian evacuation efforts. They've managed to get 1.2 million people off planet so far, but they're reporting that Vrak ground forces are closing in on the evacuation sites." Sarah felt her jaw clench. Even if their desperate plan worked, they might be too late to save most of the Zephyrian population. But 1.2 million lives was still 1.2 million lives. It was worth dying for. "Any word from Earth Command about our situation?" "Negative, sir. We're too far from any relay stations to maintain real-time communication." Sarah almost smiled at that. By the time Earth Command learned what they had done, it would all be over one way or another. They were truly on their own out here. Movement in the asteroid field, Ensign Rodriguez announced suddenly. "Vrak fighters, bearing 127 Mark 15. They're conducting a grid search pattern." Sarah moved to the sensor station and studied the tactical display. The enemy fighters were methodically checking every large asteroid in their vicinity. It was only a matter of time before they found the Vengeance. "How long until they reach our position?" "At current search speed, maybe 20 minutes. Sarah made a quick calculation. Their detonation was set for 37 minutes from now, time to coincide with the optimal position of the Vrak fleet. But if they were discovered before then, the entire plan would fail. "Chief Martinez, can we move up our timeline?" "I can trigger the charges early, but it would reduce the effectiveness of our targeting solution. We might only hit 40% of their fleet instead of 60%. And if we wait and they find us first? Then, we hit 0% of their fleet and die for nothing. Sarah weighed the options. 40% of the Vrak fleet would still be a devastating blow, enough to cripple their invasion force and give the Zephyrians a real chance at escape. But 60% would be even better. We wait, she decided. If they detect us before the countdown reaches 0, we'll detonate early. But, until then, we stick to the plan. The next few minutes passed in tense silence as the Vrak fighters continued their search. Sarah watched their progress on the tactical display, calculating distances and search patterns. The enemy was being methodical, which worked in their favor. But, they were also getting closer. Captain Navigator Patel spoke up quietly, "I've been thinking about our escape trajectory. If we angle the ship's nose down relative to the asteroid surface by 15 degrees, we might be able to use the explosion's shockwave more efficiently." "Do it!" Patel's hands moved over his controls, firing the ship's maneuvering thrusters in short bursts. The Vengeance shifted position slightly, its nose tilting down toward the asteroid's surface. "That's going to make the ride even rougher," Chief Martinez warned. "The stress on the hull will be enormous." "Better enormous stress than certain death," Sarah replied. "Enemy fighters are 8 minutes away from our position," Rodriguez reported. Sarah felt her heart rate increase, but she kept her voice steady. "All hands, prepare for immediate departure. Mr. Brooks, arm the detonation sequence." "Detonation sequence armed, Captain." All charges show green across the board. The minutes crawled by with agonizing slowness. Sarah found herself thinking about the Zephyrian children who were hopefully being evacuated at this very moment. She thought about Chancellor Viridian's desperate plea for help, and about the billions of people who were counting on a single human ship to save them from slavery or death. 5 minutes to enemy contact, Rodriguez announced. 15 minutes to optimal detonation time, Brooks added. Sarah made her decision. "We can't wait any longer. All hands, brace for immediate nuclear detonation. Mr. Brooks, trigger the charges." Brooks's hand hovered over the detonation control. "Captain, are you sure? We're giving up a lot of firepower by going early." "I'm sure." "Do it." Charges detonating in 10 seconds, 9, 8. Sarah gripped her command chair as the final countdown began. Around her, the bridge crew braced themselves for an explosion that would either save millions of lives or kill them all. 3, 2, 1, detonation. The universe went white. Even though they were shielded by the asteroid's bulk, the nuclear explosion was so massive that it overwhelmed every sensor on the ship. The Vengeance was picked up like a toy and hurled through space by the expanding shockwave. Sarah felt her body press deep into her chair as the ship accelerated at forces that should have crushed every person aboard. But Chief Martinez had done his job well. The ship's inertial dampeners, pushed far beyond their design limits, managed to keep the crew alive even as they rode the nuclear explosion like surfers on a titanium wave. Hull integrity at 60% and falling. Martinez's voice shouted over the groaning of stressed metal. Through the chaos, Sarah could hear the tactical computers struggling to process the destruction around them. The massive asteroid had been transformed into a cloud of debris moving at incredible velocity, each fragment carrying enough kinetic energy to punch through the heaviest armor. "Can you give me a damage assessment on the enemy fleet?" she called out to Brooks. "Working on it, Captain." "The sensor returns are, holy hell." "Report." "Direct hits on 17 Vrak ships, including 2 dreadnoughts. The flagship Death's Harvest took 3 large fragments through its hull. It's venting atmosphere and debris." Sarah felt a surge of fierce satisfaction. They had done it. The surprise attack had worked even better than she had hoped. "What about our escape trajectory?" Navigator Patel checked his instruments, his voice shaky but determined. "We're on course to escape the system, but barely. Our velocity is 0.3 c and increasing. At this rate, we'll reach the edge of Vrak sensor range in 4 hours. Assuming we hold together that long," Martinez added grimly. "I'm reading stress fractures throughout the ship's superstructure. We're flying on borrowed time. Sarah activated the ship-wide intercom. All hands, damage control teams to emergency stations. We've successfully engaged the enemy, but we're not out of this yet. I need everyone working to keep this ship together for the next few hours. As the crew began emergency repairs, Sarah studied the tactical situation. The Vrak fleet was in chaos. Their tight formation had been shattered by the asteroid bombardment, with ships scattered across millions of cubic kilometers of space. Some were clearly destroyed, others were damaged and limping away from the planet. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission from Zephyria Prime," Lieutenant Kim announced. "Put it through." Chancellor Viridian's face appeared on the main screen. The Zephyrian looked exhausted but hopeful. Behind him, Sarah could see evacuation transports launching from the planet's surface. "Captain Chen, we don't know how to thank you. Your attack scattered the Vrak fleet. Many of their ships are retreating to regroup. We've been able to evacuate over 2 million people in the last hour alone." Sarah felt a weight lift from her shoulders. 2 million lives saved. It wasn't all of them, but it was something. "What's the status of the remaining Vrak forces?" she asked. "Approximately half their fleet is still operational, but they've pulled back to establish a defensive perimeter. It appears they're waiting for reinforcements before resuming their attack." "How long before those reinforcements arrive?" Viridian consulted something off-screen. "Our long-range sensors indicate another Vrak fleet approaching from the consortium core worlds. They'll arrive in approximately 18 hours. Sarah did the math. The Zephyrians would have 18 hours to evacuate as many people as possible before facing a fresh enemy fleet. If they could maintain their current evacuation rate, they might save 10 or 12 million people. It still wouldn't be everyone, but it would be a significant portion of their population. "Chancellor, you need to focus your evacuation efforts on the youngest and healthiest of your people," Sarah said. "They'll be the ones to carry on your civilization." "We understand, Captain. And we will remember what you've done for us. Your species may be newcomers to the galaxy, but you have proven that humans possess something many older races have lost: the courage to do what is right, regardless of the cost." The transmission ended, and Sarah turned back to her crew. They had accomplished their mission, but at a terrible cost. The Vengeance was barely holding together, and they were still deep in hostile territory. "Mr. Kim, any sign of pursuit?" "Negative, Captain. The Vrak ships that are still operational appear to be focused on regrouping around the planet. I don't think they're interested in chasing us anymore." That made sense. The Vrak were a practical species. They had lost half their fleet and their invasion schedule was completely disrupted. Their priority would be salvaging the operation, not seeking revenge against one human ship. "Chief Martinez, give me an honest assessment of our condition." "It's bad, Captain. We've got hull breaches on 7 decks, the primary reactor is operating at 40% efficiency, and our faster-than-light drive is completely offline. We're running on emergency power and prayers. Can we reach Earth? At our current trajectory and speed, we'll reach the edge of human space in approximately 3 months. Assuming nothing else breaks down." Sarah nodded. 3 months of limping home in a crippled ship. It would be a long journey, but they were alive and they had accomplished their mission. That was more than she had expected when they first detected the Zephyrian distress call. Over the next several hours, the crew worked tirelessly to repair the most critical damage to their ship. They couldn't restore the Vengeance to full operational status, but they managed to stabilize the hull breaches and improve reactor efficiency to 60%. As they traveled away from the Kepler 442 system, Sarah received regular updates from the Zephyrian evacuation efforts. The numbers were encouraging: 3 million evacuated, then 4 million, then 5. By the time they passed beyond communication range, the Zephyrians had managed to save nearly 8 million of their people. It wasn't enough. Over 3 billion had been left behind to face the Vrak when reinforcements arrived. But 8 million survivors was 8 million more than there would have been if the Vengeance hadn't responded to their distress call. Captain, Lieutenant Kim said during one of their regular status meetings, "I've been monitoring galactic communication networks. Word of what we did is spreading throughout the galaxy. What kind of reaction are we getting?" "Mixed. The Galactic Council is officially condemning our actions as unauthorized military intervention. But there are a lot of species expressing admiration for what we accomplished." Sarah wasn't surprised. The galaxy's established civilizations preferred diplomacy and negotiation to direct action. They would view the human response as crude and barbaric, even if it had been effective. "Any word from Earth Command?" "Still too far away for real-time communication, but I did intercept a message drone headed in our direction. It contains new orders from Admiral Morrison." Sarah accepted the datapad and read the message. As expected, Earth Command was not pleased with her decision to engage the VRAC without authorization. But buried in the official reprimand was a more personal note from the Admiral. "Well done, Captain. Come home." 3 weeks into their journey back to human space, the Vengeance encountered another ship. Sarah was on the bridge when Navigator Patel detected the approaching vessel. "Unknown contact, bearing 045 Mark 12. It's... Captain, it's a Zephyrian transport ship." Sarah felt her heart race. "Are they in distress?" "Negative. They appear to be in good condition and on a direct intercept course with our position." As the Zephyrian ship drew closer, Sarah could see that it was one of their evacuation transports, designed to carry thousands of refugees. The elegant vessel dwarfed the damaged human ship. "Incoming transmission," Kim announced. The main screen activated, showing Chancellor Viridian's familiar face. But now the Zephyrian leader looked different. The desperation and fear were gone, replaced by determination and hope. "Captain Shan, it is good to see you again. We have been searching for your ship for many days." "Chancellor, what are you doing out here? You should be getting your people to safety." "We are, Captain. But first, we wanted to deliver something to you personally." The Zephyrian ship maneuvered alongside the Vengeance and extended a docking tube. An hour later, Chancellor Viridian stood on the bridge of the human vessel, accompanied by several other Zephyrians. "Captain Shan," Viridian said formally, "on behalf of the 8,400,000 Zephyrians who owe their lives to your courage, I present you with this." He handed Sarah a small crystal sculpture, intricate and beautiful beyond description. The artwork seemed to capture light and transform it into something magical. "It is called the Heart of Gratitude," Viridian explained. "It is carved from the rarest crystal on our homeworld, and it represents the hopes and dreams of our entire civilization. We want you to have it, so that you will always remember that what you did mattered." Sarah held the crystal carefully, feeling its weight and warmth. "Chancellor, I'm honored, but this belongs with your people. Our people are alive because of you, Captain. You answered our call when no one else would. You risked everything to save strangers you had never met. That is the highest form of courage, and it deserves to be recognized." Viridian paused, looking around the damaged bridge of the Vengeance. "There is something else. When we reach our new home, we will build a monument to honor those who were lost. But we will also build a second monument, dedicated to those who refused to let evil triumph without a fight. Your name will be inscribed there, Captain Shen, along with the names of your entire crew." Sarah felt tears beginning to form in her eyes. "Thank you, Chancellor. That means more to us than you know." "It is we who should thank you," Viridian replied. "The galaxy is vast and often cold. But knowing that there are people like you in it, that gives us hope for the future." After the Zephyrians departed, continuing their journey to a new home among the stars, Sarah stood alone in her quarters holding the crystal sculpture. Through her porthole, she could see the stars streaming past as the Vengeance continued its long voyage home. She thought about the choice she had made when they first heard the Zephyrian distress call. It had been the right choice, but it had come at a cost. The ship was crippled, their careers were probably over, and they would face a court-martial when they returned to Earth. But 8 million people were alive because of what they had done. 8 million Zephyrians who would go on to rebuild their civilization, to create new art and literature and music, to have children and grandchildren who would carry on their species' legacy. That was worth any price they might have to pay. 2 months later, the damaged Vengeance limped into Earth orbit, escorted by a flotilla of human ships. Sarah and her crew were taken into custody pending their court-martial, but they were also greeted as heroes by millions of people around the world. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The charges were serious: disobeying direct orders, unauthorized engagement with hostile forces, and reckless endangerment of a military vessel. But the defense was simple: they had saved 8 million lives. In the end, the military court reached a compromise verdict. Sarah and her crew were found guilty of the charges, but they received suspended sentences and were quietly transferred to a new unit, the Humanitarian Response Fleet, a military organization dedicated to providing aid to alien civilizations in crisis. As Sarah stood on the observation deck of her new ship, the Mercy, she reflected on the events that had brought her here. The galaxy was a dangerous place, filled with predators and tyrants who preyed on the weak. But it was also filled with people worth saving. And, as long as there were humans in the void, ready to answer when the innocent called for help, evil would never have the final word. The crystal sculpture sat on her desk, catching the light from distant stars and transforming it into something beautiful. A reminder that sometimes one ship and one crew could change the fate of millions. The galaxy had learned something important from the Battle of Kepler 442. When peaceful people called for help, the Deathworlders of Earth would answer. And they would bring with them the wrath of 1,000 stars, burning bright with righteous fury against those who would harm the innocent. The universe was vast and often cold. But it was also filled with light, carried by those brave enough to stand against the darkness.